All right, everybody, welcome back to a special edition of the NESN.com podcast. Today we're joined by Baseball Hall of Famer Tom Glavine. Tom's coming on to talk about a special event coming up, the first annual MIAA Legends Event. That's at Putnam Club at Gillette Stadium. It's this year's, or the first annual event honors student athletes who have achieved success on and off the field. And this year's event honorees include Tom Glavine, Doug Flutie, Dana Barrows, Rebecca Lobo, Joel Bellino, and Harry Aganis. Pretty good field right there. Like I said, joining me right now is Tom Glavine. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How you doing?
Not bad. So pretty exciting event coming up. That's going to be, again, June 16th, 6 p.m., the Putnam Club, Gillette Stadium. Folks interested in tickets can get them at MIAAlegends.eventbrite.com. The tickets are $150 a piece. Got to be a pretty cool event for a guy like you, a local guy coming back to be honored like that.
It is. Anytime I get a chance to get back there, obviously, it's something that I try to do, and to have the opportunity to get back there and be a part of that special night and be a part of that program with other great athletes that grew up there in Massachusetts and went on to achieve some pretty successful things in their lives. It'll be great to be a part of that, and certainly to honor other student athletes in the Massachusetts area. That's an important cause, and certainly was an important part of my life growing up being a student athlete. So anything we can do to bring recognition to what those kids are doing in the classroom and on the sports fields is a great opportunity.
For sure. Let's talk a little baseball, shall we? One thing, when they told me, to get a few minutes with you, I love talking about pitching. I think right now we're in a pretty special era when it comes to pitching. Is this like a new golden era of pitching? I mean, we look across baseball. You got guys like Kershaw, Arrieta, Price, Syndergaard. I mean, the list goes on and on. As a former pitcher yourself, do you just kind of look at this and just marvel at it?
I do. I mean, it's a different. Some of these guys are just different than. Most of the guys that were in our era.
Yep.
I know when we were doing our thing, I remember going over scouting reports and hearing opposing pitchers, and you talk about a guy that had an average fastball at, 90, 91 miles an hour. And now it seems the average fastball is, 93, 95 miles an hour. And you've got a bunch of guys, it seems like, coming out of bullpens now that are throwing above 95 and
Yep.
getting in on 100 miles an hour. So, the stuff in the game now certainly is different than it was during my era. I think the compromise in that, for the most part, has been guys' ability to throw strikes. I think you see a lot of guys go out there that throw hard, and really I kind of look at them more as throwers than I do pitchers. But, you do have some of those special guys like Syndergaard and like Baumgartner and Clayton Kershaw, Arrieta, guys that can get it up there pretty fast, but they also have the ability to change speeds and locate the ball, and I think that's what makes them so special. And should be the kind of thing that if I were a guy pitching right now and I saw the success those guys were having, I'd try to see what they were doing that separates them from everybody else. And from my perspective, it's their ability to change speeds and locate that separates them from everybody else. They're not max effort guys. They're not the guys that are going out there having to throw every pitch as hard as they can to make it do what they want. They've got some touch and feel on the ball, and that's a little bit unique in today's game.
Right, definitely. And one thing I was thinking about is you look at a team, two teams you're familiar with, of course, spending the bulk of your career with the Braves, especially in the mid-'90s, you guys' heyday with that pitching staff with you, Maddox, and Smoltz, and I mean, even a guy like Steve Avery, who was a tremendous pitcher, especially in those early mid-'90s. And a team you played for later in your career, the Mets, who, I don't know, I don't want to insult you or anything, but are there comparisons to be made right now, or is it too early between those Braves pitching staffs of the 90s and what the Mets have put together today, where you look at, you touched on a guy like Syndergaard, but they've also got Harvey, DeGrom, Matz, a pretty good stable of young arms there. Do you see any similarities? Obviously, I think you guys, you kind of touched on it, with the velocity and things like that. I think there are differences there, but do you see similarities?
Sure, there are. I mean, and, I think that when what is flattering, I guess, for me and for us to be, me, John, Greg, Avery, Denny Nagel, Kevin Millwood over the years, we had some teams that had a pretty deep rotation 1 through 5. For so many years, obviously it was me, Greg, and John that were together, and people talked about us three. But what's great, obviously, and is a tribute to the success we had both as an organization and as the three of us together, is you now will have people that will compare staffs to what we did. And, that's obviously flattering for us, and it's flattering for the guys that they're talking about. I know in our day, anytime they would talk about us and they would talk about, the Orioles staffs with Palmer and Flanagan and Cuellar and those guys. I mean, it's flattering to be part of a conversation when you're talking about some of the best in the history of the game. So, I think that just speaks to what we did, and it certainly speaks to, when you get those comparisons, the talent that's on that team or that rotation that's being compared. Now, you look at the Mets rotation, and I know Smoltz got in a little bit of trouble for this last year because he made the comment that they have better stuff than we did and whatnot, and they do. They throw harder than any of us did. I don't know if their command is as good as ours, but that's what we needed to do to be successful. But their raw stuff is better than probably any of us aside from Smoltz. Smoltz was a power guy with as good a slider as anybody in the game. So, his style was similar to what those guys do. But I think where I see the comparisons right now is, much like when we would go into a city back in our day and people knew they had to face me, Maddox, and Smoltz, they were looking at that and thinking, okay, how can we scratch out a win in this series? And what do we got to do to win a game and things of that nature. And I would imagine that teams that are going to play the Mets right now in a 3-game series are looking at whoever the three are that they have to match up against, and they're trying to figure out a way to win a game. Yeah. And that's always a huge positive for the team that has those three guys going on in any given night. Now with the Mets, like we say, they're 4 and 5 deep, which, we always felt in our day, you're going to have some teams that will run up against us and match us number 1 and number 2. There was few teams that could match us number 3, and there was virtually nobody that could match us 4 and 5. And that's what the Mets have. And over the course of 162 games, that's a huge difference maker when you have an advantage night in and night out at your number 3, number 4, number 5 starters. So I think all of those are similarities. Now, of course, people want to try and make those comparisons, and they immediately start going down the road of success. And are these guys going to be as successful? Who knows? I hope they are.
Yeah.
But, that's an awful lot of pressure to be putting on guys that are, 1, 2, 3 years into their career. I hope they all end up in the Hall of Fame. That would be great for the Mets. That would be great for baseball. But I think that's where the comparison kind of needs to stop for right now until those guys kind of get a little bit further along. But there's definitely some similarities in terms of how they can go in and dominate a 3-game series against anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, there's obviously the difference too with the money in today's game. There's, to keep those guys around that long is just going to be, I don't know if any team has that kind of money to re-up a bunch of guys like that. One thing, up here in Boston, and actually you guys saw him down in Atlanta, I think Tuesday night, David Price, comes in and signs a big money contract, looks to be really the savior of this rotation. And, he's a guy, the regular season numbers are there, the accolades are there, one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's a guy who struggled in the playoffs. And, you look at it, your postseason resume, I think you look at 95 really stands out. You win the World Series MVP, win, 2 wins in that series, win the clincher with that, brilliant 8-inning one-hit performance. What are the differences? I mean, I guess there's obvious differences, but how does your mentality change when the playoffs roll around? How do you become a successful postseason pitcher? And is it something where you just kind of have it? Is it something you can build over time? Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, I think the hard part of being successful in the postseason is twofold. Number one, most guys, their first time through, it's hard because you put pressure on yourself. It's just like the comparison I always make is, that jump you make from the minor leagues to the big leagues, you know, all of a sudden you think, oh my gosh, whatever I did in the minor leagues, I have to do way better in the big leagues because these guys are way better, right? And the first thing everybody tells you when you get to the big leagues is, hey, keep doing what you did in the minor leagues to get here because that's good enough here. Well, you don't believe that until you go out and see it. So your natural inclination is you think, you know, if you were pitching on the outer third of the plate in AAA, well, you better be on the outside black, and your curveball better not be good. It better be really good. And you know, so you start putting that pressure on yourself, and I think you have a lot of the same similarities in the postseason. You think, okay, what I did in the regular season, I've got to be even better now. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but you know, I think where it becomes even tougher is, you know, in the postseason, you're facing the best teams that have separated themselves during the course of the year. So you're not facing any weak lineups. Right. And you're facing everybody's best at bat. You know, you might go out there and pitch the game in August and, you know, the number 3 hitter in the lineup maybe doesn't feel good or he's played 10 days in a row and he's exhausted and it's 100 degrees out. You know, he might give away an at-bat or two for you during the course of the game. Nobody gives away at-bats in the postseason. Everybody grinds. Everybody gets after it. You know, their guys are trying to foul pitches off and do all those things and extend at-bats that they don't always do every at-bat during the course of the regular season. So I think all those things combined just make it even tougher to compete. And, you know, if you're off a little bit when you get into the postseason, that all magnifies itself. And, you know, I know with a guy like with David Price, with his pedigree, you know, I know people that, you know, when people want to try and find something wrong with what you're doing, they will. And I'm sure that's the first thing that everybody goes to with David Price. But I can promise you, the Red Sox are excited to have David Price go out there every 5th day for them, and they're gonna take their chances with him. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's just a matter of time with a guy like that. The stuff is just way too good. All right, so you're a Hall of Famer, 2-time Cy Young winner, World Series champion, World Series MVP, won 300 wins, all of that. You know, the stats are great, but would you say your greatest accomplishment is the Chicks Dig the Long Ball commercial? Because I would if I was you. I mean, well, do you have any good stories from that? I mean, I was watching that earlier. It's just one of the best commercials ever made, especially from a baseball perspective. Well, I appreciate that because I feel the same way. I think from a sports standpoint, it was one of the best commercials ever. And I think what was fun about it is it's so opposite of my personality and Greg's personality. Yeah. So for us to kind of be portrayed that way in that commercial, I think it was a little bit different and a little bit funnier look at Greg and I in general. But you know, it was fun. I mean, it was a great spoof on the excitement that was going on at that point in time with Sosa and McGuire and the home runs and everything. So, you know, it was a lot of fun. But you know, I'm proud of it, but I think my Hall of Fame induction will probably have a little bit more lasting power than Chicks Dig the Long Ball because there's already some kids in today's generation that have never seen that commercial. So I'm sure that's only going to get worse. That's true. To each his own, I suppose. Also, real quick, do you have any good Pedro Martinez stories for me? You know what? I don't. He, you know, he was a great teammate. I know that, and fun to watch. You know, he was certainly one of those guys that was a rarity and a specialty in that he could throw so hard, but he had tremendous off-speed stuff and tremendous command, and that, you know, that was what made him so good. But you know, I played with him for a couple of years there in New York, and had a lot of fun and loved being his teammate. Definitely. And before I let you go, you know, going back to Maddox real quick, does he ever get mad at you for telling these stories? I mean, I know the story about him and the T-shirts in the bathroom is starting to make its way around. Does he ever get mad at you for telling those stories? No, I don't think he gets mad. He'll try and act like it didn't happen, or he'll act like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But no, he knows that he was a sick individual, and I think while he might try to play it off, I think he's proud of the fact that he was like that. Yeah, I don't see how somebody, you know, can do those sorts of things and not be proud of it. Tom, that's all I got. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us. Again, coming up on June 16th, that's a Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Putnam Club at Gillette Stadium, the first annual MIAA Legends Event. Tom will be among a handful of tremendous honorees.
Again, if you want tickets to that event, you can go to MIAA Legends.eventbrite.com. Tickets are $150. And it should be a tremendous time, I guess, with that kind of star power. I don't know how you can go wrong. Tom,
it should be a lot of fun. Thanks.
I mean, you can't beat that. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.